Shock Monkey Radio is entertainment for adults, by adults, and the views and opinions expressed here do not reflect upon the sponsors or FXBG Public Radio. For additional information, please refer to the United States Bill of Rights. Stand warned. What's wrong? I'm invisible. Why am I not visible?
I don't know. Did the camera get bumped?
I didn't bump it.
Give me a second.
Bump it up. I guess we'll talk about this graffiti that I paid for $50 down the drain. Yeah, I can't get that back into the promotional budget. $50 gone. It's like, what's going on with the H, bro? Oh man, I forgot. Like, you forgot H? You forgot what H is? You want an uppercase. Like, yeah, what's going on with the M? And he's like, I didn't know if I was done or not. And the N and the K, what's going on? What happened there? They have a baby? They're having a baby? And he's like, I figured, most of the K was already there. So, that's fun. We're going to figure out what's going on with the camera? Got it. I just jumped out of the painting. $50 down the tubes. I'll tell you what, it's a better investment than the, whatchamacallit, the boosting the post on Facebook. What a racket. Anyway, welcome to Shock Monkey Radio. I know everyone's like, oh my God, it's almost Madman Appreciation Month. What are we going to do? Don't worry about it. If you're a patron, you're covered. You don't have to do anything this month. All right. But I know some of you are like, oh, this is my first Madman Appreciation Month. What am I supposed to do? And it's like, well, it's really simple. You share my videos with your friends, to people who get it. You sit there, you have a farmer buddy. He has a couple horses. You send him some of my videos and he's like, he'll either be like, LOL, or he'll text you back and say, what do you mean by this? Why are you sending me this? And you could just say, just saying, you're a dirty horse breeder and we're watching you, And so, and you can have fun with it. So, that's what you do in Madman Appreciation Month. Or you can become a patron. If you became a patron, the first one who becomes a patron will get a patron pack. Go to patreon.com/shockmonkeyradio, become a patron today. And you can appreciate the Madman all month long by getting the last patron pack that has a special extra prize in it that no one else will get. Most people don't want it anyway. It's a puzzle. It's a very, very hard puzzle. I call it the Madman hates you puzzle. But the Madman doesn't hate you. The Madman loves you. It's irony. See what I'm saying? So Madman Appreciation Month, you can also go to Cash App, go to hashtag Shock Monkey Radio, all one word. Send me money that way. No patron pack for those guys. Or you can follow me on social media over here. You can follow me on the social medias, retweet me, retweet my stuff, share stuff that I post on Instagram with your friends. If you like, that's how you can show your appreciation for Madman Appreciation Month. All right, I did the shameless self-promotion. Got that out of the way. I had a dream last night that I was in stables, dirty, filthy, stinking stables. Don't worry, I'm not going to harp on horses all day. And you know that Nerf dart gun your son has? BK, yeah. I had that, and I was walking through the stables, just hitting horses in the eye, just trying to get a horse in the eye with it. And after a while, I was like, what am I even doing here? This is like the second time this has happened where it's like it was the girls in the hot tub dream, and I was just like, I don't want to be here. And I left the dream. And then there was this one where I was in the stables shooting horses in the eye with a Nerf gun. And I'm like, what am I even doing here? Logically speaking, this is just going to rile them up more, make them more mean and so forth. There's no point. Either kill them or don't. And unfortunately, I kind of woke up that morning and I was like, I came to a conclusion. It's like the only obvious answer is you don't kill them. What you do is you try to convince society, like say you start a YouTube channel or something like that. And once people warm up to you, then you start saying, okay, we need to start dealing with this horse problem. And then humanity as a collective can start, stop breeding horses and let the ones that exist die off. And we can eventually get rid of horses altogether. And that's the conversation we can have as a society. It's not something that you go around doing. After all, I'm very big on personal property. And if I start thinking about killing horses, if I go on down to the local farm or whatever like that and finding me a horse to kill, I got to understand that horse costs a lot of money to that farmer who owns the horse. All right. Not to mention the significant investment of having, stables to put him in, food to feed him, water, and so forth, all this stuff of taking care of a horse. So that's a significant investment. And I don't know if you ever watched a Western movie, but you kill it or take a guy's horse, you can get hanged for that in those Western movies. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not interested in that. And so the only other real option is becoming a horse serial killer. I mean, if you want to try to get away with it. And that's unreasonable because, first of all, you're never going to outkill the breeding of the horses as a single serial killer. And second of all, a horse is like 8 people. It's like trying to, at one go. So it's not even feasible in any kind of way. So don't kill the horses. I just I got in a conversation and people are like, what if somebody goes out and starts murdering horses and they claim to watch your channel? I was like, then they're stupid. They're incredibly stupid. How do you not get this? Speaking of playing in character, let's talk about Gallant Fox, the death of Gallant Fox. We were playing the role-playing game, and I was pretty impressed with my role-playing because I was playing Shock Monkey, who is a principled character. He's a good guy. And I feel like the game master, EK, threw in the death of a horse to see what kind of reaction he'd get out of me in the game. Because let's be honest, I mean, I was hot shit in that game. I one-shotted the raccoon leader. The raccoons started swarming Scott Stadium in Charlottesville. You know, you were there. And they just couldn't deal with the fact that we were making up, uniting a bunch of factions, but there we let the mole people in. Raccoons are racist. I don't know if you know that. Anyway, and the worst thing about mutant raccoons, one raccoon, real normal raccoon, is troublesome. All right. But when they start all working together and stuff like that, they're making like Molotov cocktails and throwing them at Scott Stadium. You know what I'm saying? We're inside. Me and Gallant Fox and everybody. We're all inside. Starts burning, but I one-shot the leader with my spear. Come down, just start. I'm leaping around the edge of the stadium, smacking raccoons, kicking them off the stadium, jumping down in the stadium, beating the crap out of raccoons with my shock gauntlets. I was badass. But then all of a sudden, the stadium starts burning. And they're all crowding in the tunnel. I'm saying, you got to get out of the tunnel. The tunnel's going to collapse. And everyone starts getting out of there. And the tunnel collapsed. And the only one who was in there was Gallant Fox, the mutant horse. And he died. Died in my arms, Shock Monkey's arms. And EK tried so hard to get me to just spit in his face or something like that. It's like, can I push the Madman to a point where he's going to treat a horse nicely? But Shock Monkey is a principled character, so his loss is deeply, deeply hurt. I mean, it's just a fucking horse. And then you did that thing where the other horses came up and like bowed to him, and I was like, dude, you are not going to get me to bow to a horse. I don't care if he's dead or not. I felt like you were trying to do that, dude. Don't think I haven't thought about this a lot. I think you did this just to mess with me in many ways. But he was a non-player character who died in this altercation. This is what's fun about role-playing games, is that you could be like, Goose, no! If you want to be. It's I'm going to dedicate my life to fighting crime because they killed Gallant Fox. I think he was a Triple Crown winner, Gallant Fox. But I played in character. I hope I got experience points for playing in character. All right. Because I'm a good guy. But still, I mean, I was still able to go home and think satisfying thoughts about a mutant horse man dying. Because, I mean, even a talking horse like Mr. Ed, like, kill it, right? You have to kill it. If it has opposable thumbs, oof, you need a SWAT team or something. Dangerous, dangerous creatures. Anyway, okay, we're going pretty good. I was thinking about something the other day about Tomboys. You could take away Gallant Fox. I remember growing up with Tomboys in the 90s and so forth, 80s and 90s. Do you remember Tomboys?
Oh, yeah.
And I remember I was thinking back in when I was living in Lake Placid, this one day, me and this girl across the street, Heather, we spend all day, every day in summer together. We'd be playing baseball in the yard. We'd be riding our bikes around all morning looking for the perfect piece of like plank of wood or a piece of plywood so we can make a ramp and start jumping our bikes and getting some skinned knees and so forth. I had a blast with her. I tried to get her into G.I. Joe. She wasn't into G.I. Joe. She was mostly like playing outdoors. I don't know what she did on wintry days, but anyway. Because that's what G.I. Joes are for, rainy days, winter days. And so, but like all day, every day in summer, I'd be playing with her. And I remember being that young and understanding, like, to some degree what, like, a pretty woman is. A pretty woman, Even seeing a pretty young girl. This is weird to say because I'm an adult now. But being like 8, 9, 10 years old and you say, oh, she's my friend. She's a tomboy. We play around in the sand and play kickball together and so forth. But I could see she might be a beautiful woman one day. And you may even crush on them. It happens. It happens. I moved around a lot when I was a kid, so I never got to see like where exactly her life went. But I don't think that there's tomboys anymore. It was great because you were friends first. You had the similar interests, and then you're hanging around with them. But when you're 8 or 9, you don't really understand the whole boy-girl thing. You think girls have cooties and stuff like that. And even hanging out with her, you're like, I don't think she has cooties. Or you'd be like afraid to touch her because of the cooties. So that accidentally makes you look like a gentleman because you're not sitting there, oh, I'm not going to touch you. You don't say, I'm not going to touch you because I'm afraid of the cooties. You just look like a gentleman. He's always never put his hands on me incorrectly. It's the cooties. I'm telling you. And then I think somewhere around puberty, that's when they lose the cooties, or rather, you're more interested in risking it when it comes to getting cooties. And so, but at 8 or 9, you really don't you only notice like a 10. If you're like in a restaurant or something like that, and a 10 woman walks by, even at 8 or 9, you're like, okay, I get it. I don't know what the hell I want to do with it, how I go about getting it, but I get it. And then when you start like hitting puberty, you say, oh, I think this tomboy I was hanging out with back in the day, she's starting to look kind of cute. She's developing as a woman. And I'm down for it. But, like I said, I moved around a lot. And that one girl I hung out with, Heather, across the street, I came back and I saw her as like a teenager, and she was very sporty. She was like in a bunch of sports, and she had recently like hurt her back playing like softball or something. And so when I was talking to her, she was like 17, I was 18, and she had a back brace on, and I could tell she was like super embarrassed because they're like old friends and we're teenagers now, and she looked pretty good. I don't know if she liked me, but even though she had a back brace on, I was like, boy, I wish I'd hung around this town. Maybe my story would have been different. And I was thinking about that. It's like, are there going to be tomboys anymore that grow up into heterosexual women? Because it seems like a lot of these girls, these young girls, they come up and they're thinking, well, I like playing in the dirt with the boys. I like Tonka trucks and G.I. Joes or whatever, And they're like, oh, and then there's some adult somewhere going, oh, well, that must mean you may be a boy trapped in that body. And it's like, no, that's the wrong answer. It's like children, especially before puberty, have a myriad set of interests. You know what I'm saying? And it's not really until puberty, until a person starts focusing on the interests that they really like, So for me, it was writing, a little bit of soccer and baseball, but I was so terrible at sports. No coordination. And so I'm just wondering, because I was thinking about how many women get caught up in this non-binary kind of trend, because women, especially young teenage girls, are so susceptible to trends. And so they start thinking, it's like, oh, well, maybe there's just something different about me. Maybe I'm not really a girl. It's like, no, you could be a girl. It's like you could have this prepubescent time where you're playing He-Man and G.I. Joe with your guy friends, and you end up going to prom together, 10 years later. You know what I'm saying? And I think people are missing that. They're missing out on the friendship aspect like meeting and being friends first is kind of the most important part of when it comes to meeting a life partner. You know, somebody that you're going to spend your life with. Is you got to like them in some way. You know what I mean? And so if you're friends, especially if you're friends before you get any kind of like physical relationship going, and that's what I mean. It's like you meet prepubescent, then next thing you know, you're hanging out on a Saturday night, and you get to second base with her. You know what I mean? People don't do that anymore. I missed out on it because I keep kicking this thing over. I missed out on it. My water bottle, relax. It's nothing expensive. I missed out on it because I moved around a whole lot, so I couldn't like grow up with Heather. And so, you know, there's also girls I hung out with in Georgia, jumping bikes and stuff like that. There was a lot of them. And even like in high school, the Tomboys, they're all on the field hockey team. And by the time you're in high school, the whole conversation is different because everyone has kind of shifted gears into, yeah, chicks. I understand what it's all about now, and I'm trying to get at it. And you have these conversations with like, hey, you know, so-and-so's on the softball team or the field hockey team, and you're like, and then some guy, you know, they're all lesbians, right? Like, what? No, that cannot be true. And I remember thinking that, and I was like old friends from high school like would friend me and stuff like that on Facebook, and I would think about that. I was like, married with kids. You know, the guys in my locker room would never believe it. Because that's what I mean. It's like, I think that, you know, all women want to meet a Channing Tatum. You know what I'm saying? And whisk her away. A rich Channing Tatum to whisk her away. Every single woman, even lesbians, even trans people, trans men. If, you know, Channing Tatum could have saved Elliot Page's life. You know what I'm saying? Ellen Page's life. That's what I'm saying. If you're just throwing it to her, bro. I don't know. I kind of lament the fact that, you know, the tomboy might be a dying breed. All right. You know, there was a guy who said, last week we had the little monkey guy. He was like, oh, I like your new logo. You're like, no, that's not a new logo. I'm just doing different things every week just to change it up. This is the logo. And because this is original art created by me and two of my greatest friends. All right, help make this. All right. And so this is an original piece of art. This is computer generated garbage. All right. So when you like the new logo from last week, it's like, no, I'm not doing that. Original art is where it's at. I'm sorry. I'll be able to outdo me, AI. All right, let's do movie reviews. People are like, why do you do movie reviews? And it's like, well, because it's not as heavy a topic as the horses thing. More relatable, you know. It's like, I don't get the horses thing, but I love this guy's opinion on movies. All right, let's do the 2010 movie To Die Is Hard movie review. It was hard finding a picture for this because it's so sea level. It really is. A film by Glenn Bergotz. That's the guy. And if I was watching, how can I describe this movie? If I weren't watching a movie channel, I said, I want to watch a good movie. This is like action comedy that seems to be spoofing Die Hard. Okay, I can get on board with that. And then I expect like a studio movie. Whose fault is that? If I expect a studio movie that had a serious budget and like good special effects or anything like that, whose fault is that? Is it my fault? It probably is. So I watched this movie and I was like, what kind of low budget? But as soon as I start thinking, what kind of low budget oh my God, start laughing because there's some crazy scene going on. However, if I ran into some guy I was in the Navy with and he's like, hey man, I went to college on the GI Bill, and I went to college up north, and we did this student film in my film class. It's a spoof on Die Hard. It's called To Die Is Hard, and he gave me this DVD that he burned. And I was like, okay, I'll check it out. And I went and watched it. It would be the best movie I've ever saw. He's like, I played the bad guy. So you played the bad guy in this? Because it's hilarious. every single scene is like a kind of a spoof on it in a way. You kind of just got to get it. First of all, it's an entirely white cast, which is okay. Okay, it's all right. And every single scene is a spoof in some way on Die Hard, obviously, but the simple absurdity of it is just hard to take at some point. It's like nothing an English professor can't handle. Like there's a guy who plays Al who's outside talking to him during this terrorist takeover of a college, community college, and it's all shot inside a college. And so he keeps calling this guy, and he goes, "What are you, CIA, FBI?" And he's like, "No, I'm an English professor." And the owl guy laughs. He's like, "Oh my God, these guys have no idea what they're in for." You know, it's incredibly absurd. And the scenes, one of my favorite scenes, what really hooked me in, it was this constant, it would return back to his wife and kid. He's leaving in the morning, and the wife and the daughter just adore him, right? They both just adore him. He's the best man ever, best husband that ever could be, best father in the world. And so they're just gushing all over him. Then he goes off to work where all this happens. And so it keeps cutting back to them sitting there pondering like, "Mom, tell me how you met Daddy," you know, and it's like, and then Mom tells the story. It's like, "Well, one time he went to the inner city to teach these young kids how to play baseball." And the daughter's like, "Oh, wow, did he turn them into a ragtag team of friends that really work together?" And she's like, "Yes, honey. Yes, he did." But that kind of escalates into who loves him more and like who is closer to him, and to the point where the daughter is like, "I'm half his blood. You're nobody compared to him. I'm his blood." And the mom's sitting there arguing with her, saying, "He chose me. He stuck with you. He chose me." And it's kind of hilarious. And every single scene is set up like that. It's like it was a bunch of guys sitting in their film class coming up with screenplay, script ideas over and over. And it's like, how could we make every single second of this film funny as possible based upon the budget? And I think they pulled it off. Like I said, if it was some student, it's like the best student film I've ever seen. All right. But I would rather have gotten it from an old friend and say, "Hey, you should check out this student product." Instead, I'm saying, "Oh, what's on Tubi? Ooh, this looks like an official movie." But it isn't. Still, it's hilarious. It's like one of my favorite scenes. This sticks out every single time I think about this film. Is he's hiding in a classroom, like a small community college classroom, and he's picking staples out of his feet. Die Hard reference, right? And he's on the phone with Al out there, and there's some guys looking for him, comes by in the hallway, and he ducks down behind a desk, and you can see him there, just with his eyes over the desk, and he's like moving around, like real obvious. And the guy's by the door, and he's just looking in this tiny little classroom. He sees his shoes up on the table, and the guy's just... and the guy's looking, I don't see him. And he's like, "I know you're in here." It's so absurd. Every single thing. There's this one fight scene where the guy just kept doing the same sweep kick over and over again. Nothing would happen for like 30 seconds of the fight. Clever little stuff that, I bet a bunch of college kids came up with, and it's kind of awesome. It just depends on if you care on the budget of a movie. And how, like, what level of absurdity you can take. I will say that. So, To Die Is Hard, 5 of 13 stars. Yeah, I think saying it's the best student film I ever saw is the best explanation for it. All right, 225. Let's do another. I tried to give G.I. Joe Retaliation a fair shot. I wanted to, since it is the best G.I. Joe movie, I wanted to do a movie review of it. What it got right, let's start there. Roadblock was done very well. I like that. Channing Tatum, I know every single chick is on this earth is sopping for Channing Tatum, but then I understand like some women got upset. They're like, "Oh, he got killed. Duke got killed right away." I can understand being upset about it, but I think I'm upset about it for a different reason than you are. And so that really irritates me that something I have in common with some females. I mean, I think Channing Tatum, you want it off a dying franchise. I think that's all there is to it, even though they got Bruce Willis and The Rock in there. And so Roadblock was done well. General Hawk obviously done well. Flint done pretty well. Lady J done pretty well. Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. Best I've ever seen them on film. And I know I haven't seen the origin, Snake Eyes Origins, but everything I hear about it, it's not going to change my mind. This is the best I've ever seen Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes on film. Plus, they fixed Snake Eyes. Snake Eyes no longer has the lips. I don't know if you remember in the first movie, he had lips. Now he has a more authentic Snake Eyes looking mask. Plus, the scene where he fights Storm Shadow, he's using the Uzi. He's using the very first, weapon set for Snake Eyes. Same with Storm Shadow. And I think it was done very well because you're doing a more... It reminded me of those G.I. Joe Special Missions comic books where it was a smaller group of Joes and they're dealing with the situation as they're trying to get to another group of Joes. And so you kind of have this story. You have the story of Roadblock, Flint, and Lady J are the only survivors of all the G.I. Joes. I don't know why everything has to be so dire all the time and end up in nuclear war. It could just be G.I. Joe versus Cobra. Have fun with that. That's the fun I had with that. And so it's kind of Special Missions group, and then you got Jinx and Snake Eyes on a mission to go kidnap Storm Shadow, which is incredible. It's an incredible side story. It reminded me of those times playing with G.I. Joe in the day, and you got a hold of your mom's thread, or she had yarn around because my mom would crochet and sew and stuff. So I get some of my mom's thread, and I'm hanging all sorts of ropes, and I'm having the ninjas swing along and stuff like that. I know we all did it. So that was fun. Plus Snake Eyes being badass and Storm Shadow as well, badass. Cobra Commander was done much better, but not a whole lot better. Firefly was done excellently. It was done in a very excellent manner. He was great. He was fantastic. There's something that bothered me very early on in the movie, and that's when Roadblock, Flint, and Lady J are coming out of the well where they survived all the other G.I. Joes. And there's a scene where she says to Roadblock, where Lady J says to Roadblock, you're our leader now. And I'm like, what? That is not the case, Lieutenant. I think she's a lieutenant in the movie. All right. Flint is a warrant officer. He'd be right under her, but he'd probably be more responsible for tactics and security and so forth. She was in intelligence and covert operations. All right. And even though she was the highest ranking person there, her job would more be doing the hacking stuff that she was doing. All right. That would be her focus. It is what she did. But telling Roadblock, who is a sergeant, I think he's a first sergeant or maybe a master sergeant. I don't remember, but he's enlisted. Warrant officer. And they all just nod their heads. Yeah, Roadblock's in charge. He's the highest paid actor. That is not military. I did not spend 4 years in the Navy to know that that is wrong. To watch a G.I. Joe movie and be disappointed in that regard. Let's see, Zartan. Zartan was done okay. I think he was in the first movie as well. I mean, he's kind of a one-trick pony when it comes to, being a what's her name? Mystique kind of character. When you're a shapeshifter and you got it I assume the identity of the president. That doesn't mean, I go do that for a week and then no, he's been president, faking being president for years. And he's like, I can't take a vacation. I get to hang out with Bono, but what kind of prize is that anyway? It really is a thankless job. And so, what is it? The vehicles. There were some vehicles that were similar, and I very loosely say similar to some of the vehicle toys that we had as kids. And it's this idea of updating it into modern warfare that really, really bugs me. I wish they do there's a G.I. Joe Vietnam era, or
That would be cool.
That's what I mean, because G.I. Joe was born in that kind of culture in the United States. It was early 80s. Older brothers were coming home from the war, and younger brothers wanted to read G.I. Joe comic books and pretend to be their heroic brother who went and fought in the war. you know. And it's a good thing for boys to have, to want to be a hero, a real American hero. I just wish they'd do the movies right. G.I. Joe Retaliation 2013 movie, 6 of 13 stars. They get the wrong people to make these movies. You should ask me. Should be like I think Anthony Cumia said this once. Is like if you you get the highest score like Sim City people in your state to become mayor, right? Like say like the high score person who plays Sim City, who lives in your state, they become the mayor of the city. So you know how it works, right? I don't know. I think elections are probably better anyway. I don't know though. Anyway, I forgot my point. Or they should say like, how many hours a day did you play with G.I. Joes as a kid? 4 minimum. 4 times 7s. Lots. It was like, okay, you should do the first G.I. Joe movie. It's like, we're going to the Vietnam era. And then we're referring to like World War II heroes like General Hawk and etc. Anyway, let's get into the news worth knowing. Babble, babble. Babble, babble. All right, the hot news topic is the first 100 days of his presidency. Donald J. Trump for 100 days as of yesterday. 101 today. Believe me, I'm counting. Then I'm going to golf for an entire year. Just traveling around the world to play golf. I'm done. All right, Trump's first 100 days bring praise from independents and frustration from young Democrats. So as President Donald Trump reaches the 100-day mark of his second term, voters across the political spectrum are offering mixed reviews, praising him for swift action on key issues, while raising concern about the pace and priorities of his administration. Quote, what I like most about Trump is what he's doing. What he's doing is what he said he was going to do, whether you like or dislike his policies. Dominic, an independent voter on the Faulkner focus. Yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing to say. I like that the president is actually doing what he said he does. Like, that's not what people do when they're politicians. It's a weird thing to want. You should assume that they do what they're going to say they do, It's like, wow, he actually said that. He went and did it. Wow. What? I've never seen a politician do that. It shouldn't be that way. Anyway, that speed has caught the attention of voters across party lines. Oh, I missed something. In the past, this is a quote, in the past, a lot of politicians said what the crowd in front of them wanted to hear, and then they did what they wanted to do. The president is doing exactly what he said in rapid speed. Yeah, because he doesn't like talking accents when he's talking to Southern people. Come to 2024. We lose the screen here? Okay. Speed has caught the attention of voters across party lines. Republicans on a panel largely support how fast Trump is moving on to campaign promises, while some Democrats expressed alarm about rapid rollout of policies, especially on tariffs and budget cuts made by the Department of Government Efficiency. I think the only real gripe you have is on the tariffs. All right, Andrew, a college-age Democrat voter on the same panel, voiced frustration not only with Trump but his own party's direction. I think a big failure, this is a quote, I think a big failure with the Democratic Party in recent elections is almost a calling to anoint a person. With 2016 clearing the field for Hillary, the similar thing to a lesser extent for Biden, now the most recent election with Kamala Harris, he said. Last time we had a truly open primary, in my opinion, was in 2008, and look what happened with Obama. Yeah, he was kind of anointed too. That's a hell of a good point. Andrew's concern comes as new polling from Harvard Kennedy's School's Institute of Politics shows congressional Democrats' approval among young Americans falling sharply from 42% in early 2017 to just 23% today. Meanwhile, Trump's approval rating among 18 to 21-year-olds stands at 31%. So they're not necessarily going to Trump. They're just like, I'm kind of done with the Democrats. Not ready to jump on the Trump train. Immigration is a major focus of his actions, blah, blah, blah. So is he doing a good job? He's meh. I think the tariffs I think he went about that wrong. Incorrectly. But other than that, I mean, he's doing a hell of a job on immigration. Good job. We're going to get into a story here about the MS-13. I think he's doing pretty good. Plus, I mean, I don't know, maybe he wanted to scare people in the markets. Like, just... Trump was like, oh, you afraid I was going to take over the world? You're going to be some... I'll tariff the shit out of all of you. Anyway, let's go to this next story. Former Mumford & Sons musician asked White House if Brits punished over free speech can seek asylum in the U.S. Interesting question, no? Former Mumford & Sons musician and podcast host Winston Marshall asked the White House on Monday if President Donald Trump would give political asylum to UK citizens punished for their speech. The British rock star turned political commentator appeared at Monday's press briefing where he addressed concerns about free speech being under threat in his home country and asked if the U.S. would consider granting asylum to Brits who face prosecution for posting, quote, hate speech online. Quote, in Britain, we have had 250,000 people issued non-crime hate incidents. As we speak, there are people in prison for quite literally posting memes. Marshall told White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. We have extensive prison sentences for tweets, social media posts, and general free speech issues. Would the Trump administration consider a political asylum for British citizens in such a situation? He asked. Leavitt chuckled before complimenting Marshall on broaching the topic. It's a very good one, I guess, referring to the topic. I have not heard that proposed to the president, nor have I spoken to him about the idea, but I certainly can talk to our national security team to see if that's something the administration would entertain. Leavitt relayed that Vice President J.D. Vance has been incredibly outspoken about free speech concerns in the UK. Quote, the president has spoken about this as well, directly with your prime minister when he was here for a visit to the White House, Leavitt told Marshall. So it remains a critical endeavor of ours to show Brits and your country, which we love and admire, about the First Amendment and the importance of free speech in a sovereign nation. Gee, she's cute too, huh? Caroline Leavitt. In a speech European leaders in February, Vance warned that Europe appeared to be retreating from some of its fundamental values it shares with the U.S. and returning to Soviet-era censorship. Marshall, a co-founder and former lead guitarist for folk rock band Mumford & Sons, has become an outspoken advocate for free speech after being canceled in 2021 for expressing his political opinion. He left the band that year after causing an uproar by sending a tweet in support of conservative journalist Andy Ngo's book Unmasked about the left-wing anti-fascist movement known as Antifa. In November 2022 interview with Fox News Digital, Marshall said he had no regrets about leaving the band and now feels liberated to speak out on controversial issues. From 2022 to 2023, Marshall hosted a podcast, Marshall Matters, with The Spectator. He currently hosts the podcast of Winston Marshall Show, where he interviews leading writers, authors, journalists, musicians, scientists, entrepreneurs, and heterodox voices across the world. That's an interesting question. Think the U.S. would get in the way of somebody like, if say, what's his name? These guys who like just post social media and they're like, we want to run to America. And do you think the U.S. is going to get in between, England and these people for running away for their hate crimes, sharing memes and so forth? It's very important that the United States remains the haven of freedom of speech. We pioneered it with the First Amendment. We pioneered it. And believe me, all over the world, it is not like that. Every single government in the world thinks it has the right, including ours, thinks it has the right to tell you can't say something. Or worse, what it's getting like more and more lately, that you must say something. All right, that's not freedom of speech. And so it bugs me when people like are allow censorship. I mean, obviously there's got to be some censorship. You don't want kids having access to Playboy, you know what I'm saying? But it's when it comes to speaking your opinion, political or otherwise, I don't think there should be, somebody getting arrested and going to jail over something that is said digitally or verbally. All right. And the United States needs to remain the bastion of that. So I think, yes, we should stand up against these other countries who try to. You can't say that. You can't pray silently to yourself in front of an abortion clinic. They will arrest you in England. All right, let's go to the next story. A little bit of a victory with a warning as well. I don't know. Did I go little again? Am I going back in the painting? No.
I don't know why that keeps happening.
You know, you move, you unplug everything, you replug it all up, you move stuff around all the time. Why am I so small? SMOL. All right, I'm back. And there's the delay. I see it. All right, violent MS-13 gangbangers getting desperate. DHS credits early Trump action. As President Donald Trump cracks down on illegal immigrant gangs, a priority of his administration during his first 100 days in office, a Department of Homeland Security official says violent foreign gangs like MS-13 are feeling the heat. Quote, these gangs are getting increasingly desperate. Assistant DHS Secretary Tricia McLaughlin told Fox News Digital. Designating MS-13 and other gangs as terrorists is certainly helpful. That just gives us broader authorities as far as deportations go. Immediately upon taking office, McLaughlin said that the Trump administration began partnering with local law enforcement as part of the 287G program, specifically because of their knowledge on the local gang scene. Part of the reason, could you imagine you're part of the gang task force of a city and you're tracking all these terrible criminals for 4 years, and then finally it comes from up high, you go after them. Oh, man. Anyway, part of the reason we're deputizing state and local law enforcement is, of course, we need more law enforcement bodies. Because you're firing them all because somebody got hit by a car or something. But they also know their localities, which obviously, and they can help us really target these guys and get them out of the country, she said. McLaughlin told Fox News Digital that so far 2,394 illegal immigrant gang members have been arrested since Trump took office. Adding to that is just the tip of the spear what the administration intends to accomplish. I think that's the wrong metaphor. This is just a tip of the spear. Now, it should be like dropping a bucket. The tip of the spear is like the forward element of violent action. Anyway, I guess it works. Anyway, this is just the beginning. I'm playing editor again. This is just the beginning, she said. This is just 100 days. That's a lot for 100 days. We want to get these arrest numbers up. We want to get MS-13, Tren de Aragua, these really bad actors, out of our country. And that's what we're going to deliver on. Awesome. But if they're desperate, it could go get bloody, messy. Trump's early efforts have not gone unnoticed by would-be illegal immigrants, who McLaughlin said are reversing course instead of attempting to cross the border, and illegal immigrants are already present in the country. Self-deportation is definitely happening. I mean, we see it in our app, the CBP Home app. McLaughlin said. She said. And that's what we want because it's a lot cheaper. An average deportation and arrest is like $17,000. It's incredibly expensive. That's probably the conservative side. Yeah, just convince them to turn around and go back. That's how you deter crime. Somebody commits a crime. You throw him in jail for a long time, and maybe he'll learn his lesson. Plus, it shows other people what happens when you do a crime. I don't know if you know how justice works. Anyway, McLaughlin noted that the illegal immigrants self-deport. It also reduces danger to law enforcement authorities who risk life and limb arresting dangerous criminals. One of the Trump administration's major victories in the war on MS-13 came at the end of March when the FBI teamed up with Prince William County Police Department. That's very close by. The ATF, ICE, and Virginia State Police to arrest one of the gang's top leaders in the United States, 24-year-old Salvadoran national named Henry Josue Villatoro Santos. Yeah, Prince William County? That's like Maryland, right? That's about an hour from here. They're in our backyard, baby. But, I mean, it's good we're making headway on this stuff, because I don't know if you know, gangs, particularly gangs like, You know, these MS-13 guys, they don't hang around burning trash cans singing doo-wop, you know what I'm saying? They're pretty crazy. Pretty violent. All right, let's talk about the next story. Harvard president apologizes for failure to address anti-Semitism, Islamophobia after news reports released. Harvard President Alan Garber apologized for the university's failure to address both anti-Semitic and anti-Muslim Arab tensions on campus in the wake of the October 7th Hamas terror attack. On Tuesday, hold on, isn't that the same thing? Anti-Semitic is like, don't you hate both? Or is it just specific? Anyway, I don't know. On Tuesday, Harvard University released reports from the Presidential Task Force on Anti-Semitism and anti-Israeli bias, as well as this is a separate study, as well as anti-Muslim, anti-Arab, anti-Palestinian bias. In a letter to the university, Garber expressed his gratitude for the team's work and lamented the rise of bigotry and sometimes violent clashes occurring on campus. The 2023-24 academic year was disappointing and painful, Garber's letter began. I am sorry for the moments when we failed to meet the high expectations we rightfully set for our community. The grave, extensive impact of the October 7th, 2023 Hamas assault on Israel and its aftermath has serious repercussions on our campus. But why? Garber his letter largely generalized the plights felt by both sides, citing how some students reported feeling ostracized by their peers. Especially disturbing is with the reporting willingness of some students to treat each other with disdain rather than sympathy, eager to criticize and ostracize, particularly when afforded the anonymity and distance that social media provides. Some students reported being pushed by their peers and the peripheral campus, blah, blah, blah. It's not our fault. It's not your fault. It's not our fault. You know, it's these Ivy League schools, they are captured by the enemy. You know, they've been got so much funding from foreign nations. I think like China and what's the other one? Qatar. Been greasing the palms of these Ivy League schools forever. And then we're surprised when a bunch of Jewish kids get, harassed on the way to class. The Ivy League has been captured by these lunatics. And in many ways, I think the only thing that they've taught anyone for years is how to be racist, particularly against white people, against Jews, And you could say, oh, yeah, and there's some Islamophobia in there, too. But, if you ask me, Islamophobia is justified in every human being on earth. You should be scared of those people. And I'm tired. I'm so tired of the racial angles. And it all, and when supposedly the biggest centers, the most revered centers of academic learning are teaching people, putting out letters about why white people need to be killed and stuff like that. Because Harvard does that stuff. It seems like all they teach is racism. Grow up and welcome to America, where you don't have to live that way. The way they do in these countries where, I don't know if you've ever been to any other country in the world, but we are the least racist nation on this planet. Okay. Let's hear about a guy whining about his wife. How about that? Man in car, the two more stories, and then we're out of here. Man in car calls his wife the worst backstreet driver, sparking social media debate online. Okay. The saying, no one likes a backstreet driver, is being put to the test by one couple. Sharing his relationship dilemma on a Reddit forum, a user asked if he was wrong for refusing to drive if my wife is in the car. He wrote, for years after we got married, I could never figure out why I would be so angry and moody anytime my wife and I went somewhere. Then it finally clicked. I was only in a bad mood if I drove with my wife. He added, my wife is the absolute worst backseat driver I've ever seen. The user shared that it did not matter how he drives, no matter what he does, his wife will still find things to complain about. Have you met women? He gave examples of her criticism, including, why do you go this way? Or you're driving too fast. Other actions she harped on. He said were his parking abilities, his use of his blinker, and the way he accelerated the car. So for the past couple of years, he said, I've refused to drive. And now I make her do all the driving. And lo and behold, I am no longer a grumpy person when we travel. You solved the problem without any confrontation. You're doing your best, bud. The user, however, said his wife became upset about this arrangement since she was always driving, and she asked him to split the driving 50-50. Ooh. Now a confrontation has to happen, right? All right. Quote, last week I started driving, he wrote, and she couldn't last 3 minutes without criticizing my driving. I pulled over and I told her I'm done. Either she takes over driving or we're going home. She eventually took the wheel. She muttered that I drive like a moron, even though there's only one of us who has tickets and has at-fault accidents on their record, and it's not me. He's got evidence. He's got the receipts. Redditors jumped into the comment section, blah, blah, blah. Sounds like he came up with a perfectly reasonable solution. Another person said the hostility goes beyond backstreet driving. She sounds like a very angry person. Being in the car as a way of rewiring people's brains. Okay, good. I'm glad someone said that. Sometimes they show a personality they never have in normal life. Here in my car, I feel safest of all. Yeah, that's the way it goes. I'm glad. Sometimes I'm glad I'm married. I like reading these stories because I realize it's like, oh, good, everyone's miserable. I just had miserable in a different way. And so, but I do appreciate that this man tried to come up with a solution that didn't involve a confrontation. Because if you could do that, if you could pull that off, you're a genius among men. You know what I'm saying? You did not have to talk to your wife about what she says when you're driving. I get it. I get it, bro. You know what? I when somebody is like that, and a woman in the car, and she's telling me like, "Oh, slow down, you're going too fast," stuff like that. What really gets them to shut up is to say, "All right, see this radio knob? All right, this is your crazy knob. Just turn that all the way down. Just turn that all the way down." They'll shut up or stab you. Likely stab you. All right, let's talk about this last news story about this idiot. I don't know. Are Chinese people just dumber? I don't know. They probably don't get proper nutrition, so their brains don't develop all the way because this guy's an idiot. Man airlifted from Japan's Mount Fuji, rescued again after he returned to search for his phone. A climber, they should charge people. If one time we'll give that to you. The second time, sorry, pal, you're paying for the fuel. The time for these people. All right, a climber airlifted with altitude sickness from the near peak of Japan's Mount Fuji last week was rescued again just 4 days later after returning to the slope to retrieve his cell phone, authorities announced on Monday. The climber, identified only as 27-year-old only as a 27-year-old Chinese student living in Japan, made an emergency call on April 22nd after developing symptoms of altitude sickness. Shizuoka Prefectural Police said. His climbing irons were also damaged. The man was subsequently airlifted from the mountain. Not cheap. On Saturday, he returned to the mountain's Fujinomiya trail, located about 10,000 feet above sea level, to search for his cell phone and other belongings he left behind when he rescued. Did you think to bring oxygen this time? Another climber found him unable to move after he appeared to have developed altitude sickness for a second time. Officials urged police to be cautious in the harsh conditions of Japan's tallest peak during its off-season. Police said the mountain has low temperatures and covered in snow, even in spring. The mountain's hiking trails are officially open from July to early September, although there's no penalty for hiking off-season. Climbers will also not face charges or penalties if they need to be rescued. But the Chinese student's case has led to calls online for him being charged, at least for the second rescue. Okay, the article has caught up with us, or we have caught up with the article, I suppose. In 2023, more than 220,000 people climbed the mountain between July and September, according to BBC. Is it easy? Looks like it might be easy. But you need oxygen, dipshit. I'm sorry. That's a reflex. The 12,388-foot high mountain was designated a UNESCO World Cultural Heritage Site in 2013. The mountain used to be a place of pilgrimage and now increasingly popular among hikers. Last year, local authorities attempted to control overcrowding and risks from being rushed overnight climbing along rocky slopes to view the sunrise Yeah, so tons of people go there. By introducing an entry fee and a cap on the number of people who can enter the most popular trail. Similar rules will be introduced to the main trails this year. So it must be easy and it must get a lot of traffic. But if you're the kind of guy, if you passed out one time on the way up, wouldn't you, think ahead? You start getting lightheaded. It's like, okay, my phone probably fell and slid further down. Why would you go up there again? What an idiot. Just call it a loss. So you go to the AT&T store, right? You're like, what happened? Well, I climbed Mount Fuji. I passed out from the oxygen. I don't remember where my phone is. I'm never going to find it again. You eat your loss. You take the L. You know what I'm saying? It's got to happen. Sorry. You don't go up there again, you moron. Anyway, this is going to be the end of the show. I want to remind you again, go to patreon.com/shockmonkeyradio. Become a patron today, and you can get the last patron pack with special surprise. At hashtag shockmonkeyradio, all one word on Cash App. At DNALETSAW, that's the word wasteland spelled backwards on the Twitters, and at SLRobbins13 on the Instagram. This has been Shock Monkey Radio. I'm the Madman, and I love you.